All right. Well, hello everybody. I am Justine Froelker, and this is one of my favorite topics. So, and I don't think enough people give credit to self-care and boundaries, especially. So, today I'm going to talk with you about going beyond surviving, like surviving our infertility and loss journeys, surviving childlessness, and to really working this life and thriving through it. And what I know is that self-care has been my saving grace. It's what's dug me out of the hole. And so today I'm going to talk with you a little bit about like the taboo about self-care. Even though it's definitely a buzzword, I think it's still a taboo in many, many ways. Why I'm so passionate about it. I'll share a little about my story. What the heck is self-care? Where do you even start? How do you even do it? Because I think a lot of people know what it is, but aren't really sure how to practice it and what to do. How do you stay on track in your crazy busy lives? And then, of course, what do you actually do? So I talk really fast, so I encourage you to grab a pen and paper if you want. But so first off, just like the taboo of self-care. I think a lot of people will say, and they still say to me, even though they know that self-care has saved my life. I promote self-care every day. I share a self-care tip of the day every day on my public Facebook page. I really love teaching this work. You never go to lunch with me without walking away with lots of notes and authors and resources and apps to try as you pour into yourself. And so I think a lot of people tell this lie to themselves that I don't have time for self-care. Who has time for self-care? No one does. We have to choose our busy. We have to choose to make the time to pour into ourselves, because no matter how much you try or how much our society tells us, you are not an endless vat of energy to keep pouring into the people and the things in your life. You have to eventually pour into yourself. And so that's one of the biggest taboos we first get. It's like, I don't have time for self-care. Who has time for that? Or we'll say things like, that's selfish. It's too selfish of me to take an hour to myself every day to just do something that I love. I have a therapist who's been one of my mentors, and she talks about how self-care is on one end of the spectrum and selflessness is on the other end. It's not selfish and selflessness. It has to be on this continuum of self-care. But I will tell you, I've been a mental health therapist for over 18 years at this point, or in the field for 18 years. If people were actually a little bit more selfish in regards to taking better care of themselves, they'd be a lot happier. And so I want you to kind of take out those like negative connotations you have with self-care, that it's selfish, that if you were to actually take time for yourself, that means you're selfish, because it's just not true. Along with that is, I just can't do it. There's no way. I cannot do it. I cannot find the time. And oftentimes I still use this with myself, and I definitely use it with my teams and my clients and things like that. But I get to do this. I will make the time, not find the time, or I don't have the time. I make the time for my self-care every day, not because I'm not busy, not because it's fun some days. It's because I know when I make the time, I am happier and healthier and have more to give to everyone and everything in my life. So the taboos, I don't think they hold water, especially as someone who, my self-care dug me out of the deep, dark hole after failed infertility treatments. I had to practice it. And so when we look at those taboos, you also have to look at kind of how much of a buzzword it is. And I talk about this when I talk about vulnerability, which I know I talked about in my class earlier this week, but like self-care, vulnerability, wholehearted living, all these kind of buzzwords, but we're not necessarily talking about the actual practice of them. How do I actually do it? How do I implement these changes in my life? And why is it important? And so a lot of the times you don't necessarily need to know the why or believe that it's going to work before you take the action. And so I don't necessarily practice self-care I did not start my self-care journey because I thought I was worth it and I loved myself. let's be honest, a lot of us are living in shame, and a lot of us are struggling with self-worth and enoughness, especially after an infertility and loss journey, and perhaps in our childlessness journey. But like, I started my self-care journey because it was in those actions that I actually began to believe in my worthiness. I acted in a way that I loved myself. I didn't act in that way because I loved myself. It was in those actions that I actually was able to receive that, if that makes sense. Sometimes the action has to come first. We have to stop waiting for ourselves to be motivated to make changes and really simply make the change. That's one of my, Mel Robbins. She's a little abrasive for some people, but her book is called The 5-Second Rule. And she just talks about like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, do the action. Like get your butt out of bed. Like just do the action, because when you do the action, your thoughts and beliefs and feelings will start to follow suit. So a little bit about my story for those of you who don't know. I have had 2 back surgeries in high school. I've spent a year of my life in a body cast. And so, to be honest, carrying a pregnancy was never really on the top of my list. It scared the crap out of me. I'd already spent a year of my life in a body cast. And so my husband and I really got married, really not even saying or thinking that we would want to have kids. I mean, we knew we wanted it, but we didn't think it was possible. So I said I didn't want to be a mother, to which I now know it was a defense mechanism. And so then surrogacy started to get some media coverage, and we went on a surrogacy journey. So we never had great numbers for our infertility journey. We lost 3 babies, and our surrogate never got pregnant. We never had a successful pregnancy with her. And we ended our journey because the money was gone and our hearts were broken and we needed to be finished. And I hit the deepest, darkest hole of my life. And I had to start digging my way out. At that point, I had been in the mental health field for 12, 13 years. I knew what I was supposed to be doing. I got in to see the therapist. But what I also learned really quickly is that I wasn't practicing as much of what I was teaching as I needed to dig myself out of that deep, deep, dark hole. And so I had to start digging my way out and really, really talking about all the shame that's in our community and how little we actually take care of ourselves through the journey and after the journey, and how much our identity is wrapped up in the roles that we play to other people. All of these different things that I'm sharing with you all this week that I love. But it has really become my mission to help people have the wherewithal and the how-to of how to change their lives and live their best version of themselves. And so I started a self-care journey that it changed everything. Like, I had to learn how to pour into myself. I had to actually practice what I had been teaching to my clients for years and years and years. And one of the sayings in our field, especially, I'm a certified Daring Way facilitator with Dr. Brene Brown. And so we say, like, you never recommend anything to the people who are willing to do this work with us until you've tried it yourself for 30 days. And so, sure, I had dabbled in meditation. Sure, I had dabbled in writing, all of these different things, but was it a true practice in my life that I spent an hour a day pouring into myself? No, absolutely not. And when I was in the deepest, darkest hole of my life after failed infertility, I could not start there, which we'll talk about in a little while. So don't get freaked out that you have to embark on this self-care journey and wake up at 5 a.m. like I do and spend 2 hours a day doing self-care. That's not where we need to begin, because that's not where I began. When I was in that hole, literally where I started was with a Post-it note. It was literally with a Post-it note that I wrote down 5 things that I would check off every day. And I rewrote that Post-it note every day. It was just like, for me, that helped like solidify it. And in that deep, dark hole, the obligations of being a human were on that list. So this is what I believe. The fact that we need to sleep, as in get enough and good quality sleep. We need to move our body and drink water and feed ourselves decent food with balance and freedom within that. Like, those are things that are an obligation of you being a human being. They are not self-care. Those are your obligations. However, when you're in the deepest, darkest hole, or you're maybe just beginning this journey and have no idea where to begin, having those things on my list helped. Like, okay, sleep, got it. Like, I exercised, got it. Even if it was just like dancing for 3 minutes to a song, like whatever it might be. So when I first started this journey, I had to start with those basics. So I had sleep, eat, drink water, and move my body. And then I usually did like, I colored or did something like that, and then maybe read. Like, but I had those 5 things, the same things every day. I did not have them built into my schedule. I just had this list that I carried with me that I had to check off those 5 because that's where I began. And again, it's nowhere near where I am now, several years into my self-care journey. The busiest I've ever been and the happiest I've ever been because I'm recouping and filling myself up. To know that anxiety is not a lifestyle, productivity is not my self-worth, to know that I must rest and play and practice calm every day, even though that is so not how I am wired. I am a doer. I am a doer. If you tell me, like, when I first started this journey, I was like, oh, meditate, be calm, just be still. I'm like, okay, how do I do that? How do I surrender? What's my checklist? What are my things that I have to do? And so that's like, I still wrestle with that to this day. But what I know is that I know what the research is. Like, for example, on meditation. I don't meditate every day because I'm good at it. I don't meditate every day because I like it every day. I meditate every day because the research is undeniable. And I know I do feel better when I practice it more days than not, which we'll get a little bit more into that. When it comes to that, the self-care journey, there's so many pieces to it, but I oftentimes teach my clients, like, when I choose to make the time to pour into myself, to recoup and to fill back up, I do have that fighting chance to be the best version of myself. I think when we're not doing this, I know when we're not doing this work of a wholehearted life and practicing self-care, that my best qualities become my worst qualities. And I know this is true for a lot of people. Like, one of my best, I have two big things that I've really had to learn how to own and hone in how to make them work for me and not against me. Number one is my diligence, my determination, my discipline, my doing. If I am not pouring into myself and practicing my self-care, that doing becomes hustling, and it becomes about things of this world, and it becomes about other people validating me, and I'm grinding and I'm doing too much and never stopping. And that's turning one of my best qualities into one of my weaknesses, the struggles. Same goes with, I often, if you've followed any of my stuff, you've heard me say this before, but I'm a lot. My allotness, like, I feel a lot. I love hard. I'm a lot. And when I am not practicing my work, when I'm not doing my self-care work, speaking my truth, asking for what I want and need, that allotness will definitely come out in drama and anger. I have to practice this work so that it's loving well and hard others and myself. That's why I'm so freaking passionate about this work. And like, one of the pillars of my self-care story, I never expected. So I guess it's been about a year ago, 4 years ago, my dad fell off a ladder and he suffered a traumatic brain injury. And I grew up in Iowa, and so we moved them here to St. Louis to get good medical care. And they lived with my husband and I. Since we don't have kids, we could help rehabilitate them. So my parents lived with us for 11 months. And I was 35, 36, 35, which was just like this really strange dynamic. I have young parents. I had kind of become a child that was parenting her parents in some ways. And what I learned, like living with my parents, and I write about this in my next book, is that number one, those qualities that I love about myself, but that I have to manage and do the work to have them work for me, I was like living with the epitome of them, right? Like my dad is so passionate, and when he's not doing his work, it's anger. Same with me. My mom is a true caretaker and a doer. Same with me. I mean, I'm a therapist. I give and I give and I give. I love educating. I love pouring into things. I say yes way too much. And that's my mom. And so like I was living with these, like my two main characteristics of who I was. And like it was super stressful, and I stopped doing my work. And so I learned like really quickly that this is a daily practice in my daily choices. Some days it's just going to be in 5 minutes a day. And the good days for me, where I am in my journey, it's over an hour, and I love it. And I make time for that. But like to really know and own what your greatest qualities are, and to be honest with yourself that they are also, if you don't pour into yourself and recoup, they will be your worst qualities. And so that's why we have to pour into ourselves. That's why we have to practice this work. So are there any questions so far? I'll pause. I've been just like blabbing. No questions? No? Okay. All right. I talk really fast. So where do you start? So like I said, when we first ended our journey, I had to start with those 5 things. Like, and those 5 things, 3 of them were just human needs, right? I define self-care as a morning routine and a nighttime routine. Okay. So first off, when I tell you, like when I say that, I want you to like really erase all of those, like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can do this. I don't have the time, whatever. Just listen and receive. And you can begin really small if you need to. So I like to define self-care as 3 to 5 things that you practice every morning and every evening, that you practice in the same order, because like the routine and structure is really actually pretty good for us, especially because adulting is brutal, especially adulting with the technology that we have. Like we are always on. So to have that structure in my day of, I know how it's ending and I know how it's beginning, is really helpful. So those 3 to 5 things can be lots of different things, which we'll get to in a little while. But to begin, I teach people to start with an evening routine, like a bedtime routine, because most of us are not getting good sleep. Whether or not you're not getting enough sleep and or you're not getting good sleep. So I hardly ever get enough sleep during the week, which is why I give myself permission to catch up on the weekends. But I know that the sleep that I do get is very, very good because of my nighttime routine. And now you are definitely, like, you're talking to someone. I took sleep meds for 11 years. I have depression in my family history. It hit me in college and I went on meds, and I was on meds for 11 years. And the sleep med I thought I had to absolutely have. And it took me a long time of practicing a nighttime routine and improving my health in other ways to get off of that sleep medication. So, but that nighttime routine, I think, is imperative to starting your self-care journey and to really learning how to pour into yourself so that you have more to give to others and everything in your life. So that nighttime routine is like 3 to 5 things that you do right before sleep. A few cardinal rules: no technology. That includes TV. I know I'm going to lose some fans right there. Just no, it's the light from our phones and from TVs and iPads and computers. The light alone is preventing you from getting the best sleep. When the retinas in our eyes detect the sun setting, dusk, our brain releases melatonin. Melatonin helps our brain to get drowsy to prepare for sleep. If you have a screen in front of your face, even if it's on that nighttime setting so that blue light is turned down, it's still preventing that good melatonin from being released. So no technology. This is the one I struggle with the most. I'm on a total relapse right now. Like I have not been turning off my phone before I walk in the bedroom. So I have had to kind of reset. My reset is like phone goes on airplane mode as soon as I step into my bedroom. Ariana of Huffington Post, she says like she has no technology in her bedroom. She has an old school alarm clock, no technology at all. I like to listen to binaural beats at night on YouTube, so I still have my phone by my bedside, but I have to turn it on airplane mode if I'm relapsing on not getting off my phone right before bed. So that's my number one cardinal rule. No technology before bed. It's not good for your sleep. And then you do 3-ish things in the same order, basically to wind down your brain and prep for sleep. So for me, when I was first starting, I tried a bunch of things. So I tried some nighttime yoga. I tried tapping, emotional freedom technique. I love tapping. I have a couple scripts on my YouTube channel if you want to check those out. I tried breathing. I tried prayer. I tried meditation. I tried apps. I did reading. I did writing. And what I would do is I would do those 3 things in the same order for like a week or 2. And then I would kind of evaluate which of those activities am I just dreading? Like, I do not like this. I dread doing it. I'm skipping over it. And I would like set that to the side. That's not helpful right now. And then I would plug something else in. So like I started with the nighttime yoga. I liked it for like a week, and then I like just dreaded it. Like I did not want to I didn't want to stretch by my bed, and like it made me cold. I didn't like it. So then I replaced that with some breathing exercises. And then I didn't love that. And so then I replaced that with the devotional. And so like really kind of be honest with yourself with accountability of what are you dreading or skipping over, and perhaps you need to plug something else in there and give yourself permission to try something different. So for me, my go-to nighttime routine is I read a short devotional. I don't care if it's religious. I have tons of resources on my website for books and things like that, but I read a short devotional. I will then write. Writing before bed is amazing. It's really good for your brain. It's good for winding you down. It gets this out of your head. Now, journaling before bed, a couple things. This is not to make what is in your head a permanent record. Do not reread your journals. It is to get out what's in your head. So I like to say that writing is, I write out the hard stuff to make it less powerful, and I write out the light stuff to honor it. But I get it out of my head, so I'm not ruminating on it as I'm trying to fall asleep. Always, always, always end on a gratitude. So there's lots of ways to keep gratitude journals. My favorite way to keep a gratitude journal before bed is that you write down 3 to 5 things that you are grateful for. I have 2 cardinal rules for that. Number 1, those 3 to 5 things are something different every day. This is not to make you go back and like check your journal, like to like make sure you're not repeating something. It is simply a tool to help you go through your day from start to finish, like stopping on like 30-ish points of your day to see like, what are you going to pull? What are those 3 to 5 things that are going to make your gratitude list that night? What we also know is that when you do that, your happiness is amazing for a week to 4 weeks just from keeping a gratitude journal, like from one night. It's crazy. It's so powerful. Also, because you know you're going to mark down 3 to 5 things from your day, you start to have that perception and that perspective throughout the day. Oh, wonder if that's going to make my gratitude journal tonight. And we'll see if he's got something better for me. Like it really does shift your mindset to a gratitude mindset throughout the day. So 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for, something different every day. The second thing that I like to have people do as a gratitude journal is that you pick one of those things to write a few sentences about why you're grateful for it. Because new research actually shows that your return is in the details. So I always use this example on my teachers, but like I use a buckwheat pillow. I love it. I swear by it. It's linked on my website if you need a new pillow. But it's like a $40 pillow. If it's been one of those awful days, and I still know I need to be grateful for something, maybe I write down my buckwheat pillow. But why am I grateful for it? I can think of 1,000 reasons of why I'm grateful for that stupid pillow. It helps me get better sleep, which means I'm more rested for my day the next day, which means I can write more, I can serve more. It means my body feels better in the morning, which means I can work out, which means I have more energy throughout the day, which means my back doesn't bother me anymore. Like all of these things. Like, I mean, I can walk the dogs every day. All of these things that I'm grateful for from just a silly $40 pillow because I had a crappy day and that was all I could come up with for my gratitude journal. So I always recommend that writing in a gratitude journal is part of a nighttime routine. And then reading a book is also like a surefire way, like, but a real book, like not on technology, preferably an actual real book. And I will give a warning that if you are an avid reader, you may need to set a timer. So I have one friend that she devours books. And so she has to set a timer at night. And once that timer goes off, she puts the book down. So do we have I see questions. Should I stop? Should I pause? Okay.
Just more comments.
More comments, okay. So nighttime routine, 3 to 5 things. Like I'm talking like 15 minutes before bed, but you can start with 5. Just start with 1. Just start with 1 so that you get better sleep. Because then eventually, a few weeks in, new research shows that it takes 66 days to make a new habit. No longer is it 21 days or 30 days, 66 days. So I have a week-long challenge launching on May 14th, but after that, we're going to have a 66-day one because what this research is showing is that if you can have discipline and willpower for 66 days, you go through that messy middle part where you really do not want to do it, but you make yourself do it. You have to really harness that willpower. And at the end of that 66 days, willpower and discipline they're not part of it. It just becomes part of your day. So I would say like a few weeks to maybe a month of a nighttime routine, then perhaps you can start working on that morning routine. So I'm a 5 a.m.er. I get up at 4:54 every day because I like even numbers. It's one of my weird things. There are a lot of people like that. I have been getting up that early for probably a year or 2, and it has changed my life. And so it doesn't need to be that early for everybody, but it probably does need to be early. What is the time that is required for you to get up before everyone else in your household is up? Pets, spouses, partners, host children, whatever, whoever's in your house. When do you really need to get up so that you can spend some time when everyone else is asleep to pour into yourself? For me, that's 5 a.m. I love it. I love getting up, moving my body first thing. So I get my heart rate up, I sweat, I move just for 20 minutes, and then I sit my butt down and I read. I read scripture, I pray, I meditate, I write, and I sit down and I pour into myself while the rest of the world is asleep. Because man, that really preps me for the rest of the day. And yes, it will suck at first. You will feel tired. You will struggle for a while, that messy middle. You can't skip day 2, as we say in the Rising Strong work. You cannot skip the hard part. You can't skip the messy middle. It's supposed to be uncomfortable because it's new. You must trust the research, and you must trust that if you choose to make the time to pour into yourself more and actually add to your day. So I say this to my clients all the time. Yep, I'm literally asking you to add more crap to your plate, because I promise if you do it in these ways to pour into yourself, you will feel as if you have more time, and you will definitely feel that you have more energy to pour into your life. You won't go to bed so depleted and torturing yourself with I'm not enough, or all of these things that we live in a world that tells us that we are not enough every day. You will never go to bed with all of your to-do list done. When I choose to pour into myself every single day, I have more wherewithal to counter those thoughts with what is my truth, which is I am enough, I am loved, I am deserving. All this work that I have that power within myself to remind myself of those truths because I have acted on those truths, even on those days that I didn't believe it. So that morning routine is huge. I will definitely say this is something that so nighttime routine, morning routine. I've fallen off the wagon on this too, which we'll talk about what happens when you fall off track. But for like 2 weeks there, I did really well of like literally doing nothing for 30 minutes in the middle of the afternoon. No phone, no music, no books, no meditation, like just being, just to listen, just to breathe, just to be, cuddle with my dogs, whatever, but like to do nothing. And having that like midday break or like a midday meditation, it really does make it so powerful. It enhances how much you have to give. It helps with my energy level, helps with my focus. I have fallen off track. I mean, it's National Infertility Awareness Week, so like it's busy, but so it's been difficult to have that. I have not made the time. I have not scheduled it into my schedule. That's one thing that I also really recommend when you start this journey, like put it in your schedule. Like I have my 20 minutes of working out, 20 minutes of reflection time, and 20 minutes of learning time in my morning. It is in my schedule. I have it in my schedule, 30-minute break. I have it in my schedule, like a second wind workout. So like literally I'll walk the dogs in the afternoon, or I'll dance, or I'll skip, or go outside, but like late in the day to help with my energy levels. But like when it's in your calendar, yeah, you can ignore it, but it's a lot harder when you see it. So you can't use the excuse then that you forgot because it's there, let alone if you have a notification pop up for it, right? So what does happen before we get into what you actually do? Should we pause? Good. Okay. So I'll come to comments at the end. Before we get into like what you can actually do, what happens if you fall off track? Because this is what happens in our head. Well, I've been scrolling Facebook in bed for the last week, and which means I suck. I can't even like do the self-care journey right. What the heck? Like I'm a piece of crap. Like, I mean, the self-talk, I know we all have it. Pick your poison. Like whether or not you're willing to admit it out loud, I know you have it because I'm a therapist and because I have it too. But like our brain tells us this lie because our brain wants to keep us comfortable. It is always going to take the easy route. Always going to take the easy route. It is easy for me to scroll Facebook at night and to numb and avoid rather than me to turn it off and like do my freaking routine. And so you don't need to like start over. I hate that saying. There's no reason to start over because you still have made great progress. You must give yourself permission to handle yourself with grace, be kind to yourself, practice some self-kindness, look up some Kristen Neff. I love Kristen Neff's work. Her website is selfcompassion.org. It's amazing. Her book is Self-Compassion. Talk to yourself in a kind way, like you actually would talk to your best friend and be like, okay, you've really struggled with keeping on track with your nighttime routine. Tonight, you're going to begin again. You're going to begin where you are. So I'm going to put down the dang phone and I'm going to keep that gratitude journal tonight. Maybe I just need to start with one thing rather than the 3 things. And that's okay. Give yourself permission. It's grace and permission because we have to have boundaries and be realistic with ourselves too. So when you fall off track, you begin again. Begin again with even just one thing. Get that one thing in for a week, and then you add on the next thing for a week, and then you add on the next thing. So many of us fall completely off track because we think we have to go all back in with everything, which then just keeps us down and never starting again, right? Then we never begin again, and then we think we have to start over, which it's never like you're doing the best that you can. You really, really, really are. We are all doing our best. When we are kind with ourselves and hold ourselves with accountability, maybe even have an accountability partner, and give ourselves some grace and permission to begin again, you start with just one thing. So when you fall off track, it's all right. Life happens, life gets crazy, and we are human. We're human beings, and we really kind of suck at being human beings. We try to do our way out of everything, and our brain really does not like to be uncomfortable or to wrestle or to struggle. And so we must practice the skills and get uncomfortable and begin again. So hopefully that makes sense. So some ideas, and then I'll talk a little bit about boundaries, because I did plug boundaries in this too. Some ideas for puppies, sorry, I have to move my legs, they're falling asleep. Okay, so ideas of what to do for self-care. So reading, obviously reading. I love reading. I have a bunch of book recommendations on my website under the resources tab. But find what you love to read. Like I'm a self-development junkie. So I don't hardly ever read like I don't hardly ever read fiction. I only read nonfiction. But read. Or if you're struggling with reading, you can do Audible. Like I love Audible. You can speed it up. You can listen on, like I only have an 8-minute commute to my office, but I listen to books on that commute. I'm always pouring into myself, always learning. Writing, writing's huge. Even if you're not a writer, I've written books, but I still don't really consider myself a writer. It's not one of my strengths. That's why I have to have help with editing. But like in the Rising Strong work that I do with Brene Brown, that I'm certified in, we must move what's in our heads to our hearts through our hands. And writing's the easiest way to do that. Just get it out. And this doesn't mean a big, long narrative. It can just mean like a quick bullet point on a Post-it note. But get this stuff out of your head, because it's overwhelming up here. When we get it out in black and white, when we move it from our head to our hearts through our hands, and we get it out on that piece of paper, it's not so overwhelming. So just writing down your thoughts, writing down a story, writing down gratitudes, just write. One of the really powerful assignments that I love to do is you set a timer for 5 to 10 minutes and you write down I am statements. So like, I am helpful, I am powerful, I am loved, I am enough, I am creative, I am loving, like I am loved, like write down I ams. That's super, super powerful work. Gratitude. So I already talked about my gratitude journals that I love, but like having a gratitude mindset will change your life. To really, not Vishen Lakhiani, I love Vishen Lakhiani. Panache Desai, his, it's a devotional book, but it's non-religious. It's Finding Your Soul Signature. I love it. It's on my website. But he talks about his gratitude chapters, like how everything that comes into your existence that day, you say thank you and receive the message that you were needing to receive. So like, what if you actually stopped at that stoplight that you have no time to hit and said thank you and asked, what am I needing to receive here? Because when we actually look for the message that we need to receive, it's really easy to practice gratitude. What is the gift that I need to receive in this hiccup, in this frustration, in whatever it is? But having a gratitude mindset will literally change your life. When we choose to take our traumas, losses, and tragedies and make them a gift, this does not dishonor them or our stories. It honors them. When we rewrite our traumas, losses, and tragedies, and then have the gratitude to make them into a gift and let them go, we are not victims of what has happened to us or what's been done to us or whatever. Like that, it really has been one of the single strongest things that I've done to define my happy ending after my journey. I have to talk about meditation, obviously, and lots of people can totally roll their eyes at this. I still roll my eyes at meditating. I'm not awesome at it, but I love it at the same time. Sit your butt down and be quiet. I have meditated more days than not the last 4 or 5 years now at this point, I guess, because I had a toolbox to meditate. I have a list of my favorite meditation apps on my website, but like even like use a YouTube video, just listen to a song, just sit in silence, watch the wind through the trees, watch the clouds, use one of the apps, Calm, Headspace, Insight Timer is my favorite, but I started with Headspace. Headspace is an awesome app to help you learn how to meditate. Light a candle and watch the flame, light some incense and watch the steam or the smoke coming off of it. Just close your eyes, listen to your breath, count your breath. Like there are so many ways to stop and breathe and be It doesn't have to be torturous, and it doesn't have to be for 20 minutes at first. Just set a timer for 5 minutes and go from there. Also, do not get tripped up on that, like you have to clear your head. Like, who the heck is clearing their head nowadays? I mean, oftentimes when I'm meditating, I get more amazing ideas than ever. But because I'm meditating in time of quiet, I will recognize that thought, worry, or to-do, and I will label it, and then I will take a breath and refocus. That also goes to say with that you need to know how to breathe. Like, breathe. And not breathe in your chest. Women suck at breathing. We oftentimes breathe up in our chest, which means our diaphragm is never expanding. Gertie says hi. But we need to breathe, like expand our belly on the inhale through your nose, expand that belly, make it big and round and firm, really move that diaphragm, and then exhale through your nose or your mouth, I don't care, but pull that belly in, because that's how you're gonna get that physiological response to slow down. So focus on that breath. Learn how to breathe. I bet you if you stop and you breathe just like 3 deep breaths a couple times a day, you will literally change your physiological makeup. You will bring down your physiological response. Your cortisol levels will come down, which means you don't feel as stressed. You'll be able to have more gratitude throughout your day. Like it works. Breathe, meditate, be. And don't get tripped up on, well, I can't meditate. I can never turn off my brain. That's not what we're trying to do. We are trying to clear our head, but more than that, we're trying to become more cognizant of what's happening in our bodies and in our brains, because we are always doing. So when I slow that stuff down, I have more power to have my emotions not write my story. I have more power to become my own author of my story, rather than my emotions and my traumas, losses, and tragedies writing it. So that's why I believe in breathing and meditation, tapping for that too, like tapping and like emotional freedom technique. It's so freaking weird, but it totally works. So check that out too. Affirmations. This is new to my journey. I've been working with a business coach for over a year now at this point, and she had me do affirmations, and they are so weird. If you go all Louise Hay, you literally will look yourself in the eye, in the mirror, 5 minutes every morning and 5 minutes every night, and say affirmations out loud. Things like, I am enough right now as I am. I am safe. I trust and accept the process of life. I am loved. I am worthy. I am valuable. Like all these things. But here's the thing. Number one, don't do these and think that you're actually not going to feel weird. You should feel weird because it's super weird and uncomfortable. That doesn't mean you stop doing it. Number two, don't ever think that you have to believe what you're saying right now. So Marissa Peer is another therapist that I love following. She's on the Mind Valley app. She talks about how we need to lie to our brain, say I am enough, lying to our brain to cheat fear and steal back our happiness. So like when I started doing affirmations, I wasn't saying them because I believed them. I said them because I know that that is my truth and I want them to be my truth. And so I'm going to have that, I'm going to speak it into the universe and into around myself, that energy, because one, then I'll start to believe it. And two, I'm doing the practices to really start to believe it. Yeah, Nikki, exactly. Fake it till you make it. I like to say faith it till you make it. So like, speak it, speak what your truth is. And like your truth is, no matter what, you are worthy, you are loved, you belong, you're deserving. Like that is our truth. I don't need you to believe it right away. I do need you to speak it and act like it. So that's where the affirmations come in. On my favorite Louise Hay book, I still read it like almost every day. I just kind of open it up, is You Can Heal Your Life. So it's super weird. She really claims that affirmations can cure anything. I'm not sure about that, but I will say they are super powerful and have changed my life. Color, paint, do something like artistic. So as Brene says in the research, everyone is creative. There's no such thing as a non-creative person. And unused creativity is not benign. In other words, it will grow darkness inside you if you don't practice creativity. Don't get super overwhelmed that it has to be some big production. I color every day. Now I do paint by numbers. I love them. I buy them on Amazon. I'm not awesome at them. I don't think I could sell them, but maybe I could, but whatever. I don't do it for that. I sit down for 5-10 minutes every day and I create something. I paint or I color. You can write, you can garden, you can make cards, you can play with Play-Doh, you can write a song, like anything that's of create woodwork. I mean, it's just use your hands and create for non-production's sake. It's creation to enter into that state of flow. So you're doing something that takes enough thinking that you have to be really paying attention, but it's not too difficult that you get frustrated. When we enter into that state of flow and create every day, it really does. It's part of that wholehearted life. It helps us sit and be with ourselves. It helps us cope with our emotions. And it really links those two different hemispheres of the brain, like that creative side that we're not using a lot, that a lot of us are not using a lot throughout the day. It really unlocks that, which helps us with the analytical part. So create something every day. Music can be part of that. There's nothing like music to change your mood. Moving your body, dancing. I posted a video of me dancing on Facebook like a month ago, and it was like the most viewed video I've ever had. I was like, but what if you started your day that way? Like, what if you started your day in true joy and vulnerability and danced and sang and just listened to music? I bet your day would be different. So that's kind of like, that's my self-care process, like that, or like, and I mean, there's a ton more, like it's a ton more. I've already been talking for almost an hour. I also kind of want to talk a little bit about boundaries because people are so scared of boundaries. I actually have a 6 week long therapy. I do therapy Thursdays every Thursday-ish. And I did a boundaries video and people had so many questions. I was like, okay, this is clearly a series. So I did 6 weeks of boundaries. But like, in order for me to practice my self-care, I have to live a boundaried life, which is important, which means like I live boundaries in my evenings because I get up at 5 a.m. to pour into myself. I live boundaried in my life because I say no when I need to say no. How many of us are saying yes when we really mean no? And what's happening there is that you are harboring resentment. You feel crappy. Brene will say her mantra for boundaries is choose discomfort over resentment. Choose discomfort over resentment. Choose discomfort over resentment. And then you say, no, I cannot do that right now. It does not work for me. Because when you say yes, when you really mean no, you're the one that's pissed off about that. You're the one that builds resentment. And it affects your relationship with that person too. And I know for a fact, it affects your relationship with that person more than had you just said, no, I can't do that right now. Yep, they might have been mad if you had said no, but like resentment's way more poisonous. So speak your truth. Say no when you mean no, and say yes when you need to say yes. This also goes hand in hand with asking for what you want and need. Living a self-care, boundaried, wholehearted life means that I am asking for what I want and need from my loved ones. It does not mean that I will get what I want and need from my loved ones. However, that does not necessarily change what I want and need. It may mean that the relationship changes. So in my book, Ever Upward, I talk about the empty well metaphor. So like some people just don't have what we need, and that's okay. Like it is my job to love someone with their limitations rather than to be pissed off at them all the time for not meeting my expectations. That's on me. And that's a boundaried life. So that includes asking for what I want and need. When I ask for what I want and need from my loved ones, I'm speaking my truth. I also will learn what their limitations are so that we can have a healthy relationship. This is not easy work at all. But asking for what you want and need is way easier and better than pretending that you can read people's minds or that they can read yours and that they should know what you want and need. That's such crap. That's a lie that we tell ourselves. I also think in this journey, especially, some of that boundary living is giving the script to our loved ones. So like, especially in this childlessness, like I've had to, like our best friends, they have 3 boys, and I have had to have that conversation. Sometimes, like, especially as the boys get older, I have to have it again, but I will say, like, I want you to invite me to kids stuff, but there will be days that I need to say no. days that I want to live in the perks of my childless life, and I don't want to get up for their game. Or I need to say no because it's a really hard day, because maybe it's a due date or whatever else. But like, I have to give her that script. I have to give her that permission, because so many people in our lives just don't know what to say or do. So when we give them those tools and the language and the skills, 1, it doesn't mean that we'll get it. 2, it doesn't mean that they'll practice it perfectly. But 3, it gives them something, and we can actually sit beside each other and have like a for real conversation about how we navigate what is difficult for both of us. So that's what I mean by boundaried, and asking for what you want and need, saying no when you really need to say no, and saying yes when you need to say yes. So I think that's all I got for your teach. Do we have any questions from Facebook or comments? We can go through comments.
Do you want to pause it?
I can. Nikki, are there any questions from Facebook? And I'll read your comments.
Oh, hang on a second. Sorry, I've got in the background. I'm trying to sort something out for the next webinar.
Oh, no, you're totally fine.
One comment from Facebook is the fact that somebody would like to do the getting up early and things, because she likes that idea. However, her husband is a night owl, and it's really the only time that they have to talk at the end of the day is later at night. And I'd suggested, what about sort of over the weekends instead? And she said, that's even worse. So she was wondering what advice you might give to her.
Because he's probably up worse, or he's probably up later on the weekends, right? So it's even worse. Well, I oftentimes, like, there's a couple of things here. Like, number one, let's be realistic that yes, we need to have time with our partner, and we have better, more quality time with our partner when we are doing our own work, like when we're filling ourselves up. So like, there needs to be like, is it like every other evening that she like really like goes to bed early, puts on the eye mask, puts on like, I have this, it's so sexy. It's not sexy, but it's like a headband so I can sleep with headphones on. It's for my binaural beats at night to help me get better sleep. But like those kind of like, so she's still with him, but she is honoring what she needs to get better rest, to practice her self-care in the morning. The other part too, though, and Chad and I do this a lot, it's kind of twofold. One, when we feel ourselves getting into this rut of just like checking in, like, oh, like, how was your day? What meetings did you have? Who'd you talk to? It's just like this regular check-in. Because I think a lot of times we just do that, and we're not really talking about how we feel, what's happening in our lives, what we're working on. We're just going through that checklist. So when you fall into that rut, I think a really great thing to try with that is we go through like, what was the best part of your day and what was the worst part of your day? And there's no like elaboration. It just plays on it. But then also you can kind of literally set a time for that quality time once a week that you really like, you sit and be with each other, or you do an activity together. Like, especially if your love language is quality time, you need to actually schedule that time with your partner. And maybe it's just once a week, and then you kind of, I think you kind of play with that. Is that enough? Is that not enough? Is he feeling loved and poured into enough? But also like really saying like, I really need this. What's the middle? Like, how can we figure this out together, since he's a night owl? My husband's a night owl. So like, we don't go to bed at the same time. Like, I'm usually asleep by the time he comes in. So that's not where our quality time lies. Our quality time is at dinner, or it has to be like on the weekends, or it's made like specific date after church or something like that. But you have to make the time, just like making the time to pour into ourselves, making the time to pour into our relationships.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for that. And what I was thinking whilst you were talking about that is that one of the things that Andrew and I love doing together, and it's now stopped being an important part of our lives, is that we love cooking together.
Yeah.
And we need, I think, to get back to the time of actually cooking together because we love it, and not cooking because we're hungry and we need to eat.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's, I met with a client yesterday, and I was like, so did you go on a date with your wife? And he was like, nope, thought about it a lot. And I was like, okay, so there is a lot of no, it's not easy, but it is simple. Like, just do the action, schedule it, having like, okay, Andrew, tonight we are going to like make this cool meal. Let's pick it out tonight and then schedule it for the, you know what I mean? Like you make an intentional effort, and we stop talking and we do. Because when we do, like, action does kill fear, and our brain, remember, will always try to keep us comfortable and keep us out of fear, which means we usually are in inaction.
Yeah, this is a great point. And actually, Andrew is now sitting the other side of the desk. It's our wedding anniversary on Monday.
Oh, happy.
So here we are, accountability. Andrew,
Yes,
would you like to cook a special meal with me on Monday to celebrate our wedding anniversary?
okay.
He said yes. I don't know if you heard that, but he
I
did say
did.
yes.
Okay, I'm going to message you on Tuesday to make sure you did it.
Oh dear, yeah. No, that will happen because,
I'm an
as I say,
Yeah. I mean, even to have people in your life to be able to say, like, I need you to hold me accountable to this. Like my friend Michelle, I will say, like, last night I literally messaged her. I said, I will be in bed and asleep. I'll be in bed by 9, asleep by 9:30, no later than 10. You have to keep me accountable. And I know if I speak those words, I do not want to answer to her the next morning. Yeah. I will do it. That helps me, and especially because she's on this journey with me, so she knows how important self-care is to her life, but to my life too. And when you have that accountability partner, it's because most of us do have a rule-following part of our brain. Like, I want to follow that rule, I want to follow through, and we know it's good for us, but sometimes it's just that extra set of accountability that will really help you do it.
Yeah, which is a great point. Yeah, definitely. I think I will just go back on and check.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that was all on Facebook, apart from just saying great points, great ideas, thank you. Yeah, so that's
well, and
that's
I can watch the comments on Facebook too as people rewatch, right? And just comment there.
Yeah, most definitely. And also we've opened up comments on the website as well.
Okay.
And we're starting to get a few comments on the website that I'm sort of moderating and things.
Okay.
Because this is going to be available for 6 months.
Okay, great.
10 months or whatever. And I was thinking about this yesterday, actually. I think there's so much information packed into all of these events that people actually need time to go back, watch them again, let the ideas settle, think about them, and then we might start getting more comments.
Yep, exactly.
As well.
Yep, yeah. I find that with a lot of my presentations. I'm kind of a fire hose person. I just and then let you kind of sit with it and work your way through it.
I did make a comment on Facebook about the fact that you and I have a lot of things in common, I think, and our personalities, I think, are very similar. And if we ever get together in a room, I don't think the universe will cope.
Watch out, world.
Yeah.
What's Justine's husband's name?
Andrew's just said, what's your husband's name?
His name is Chad.
So it looks as though Chad and I will be going down the bar for a drink whilst you two.
Chad is a very good compliment to me. He's more I can't, in the next book, I'm like, oh, there he is again, and his stoic, whatever.
Yeah, I often say that Andrew gives me the power and the permission to fly. However, he always also keeps me grounded in a bit of reality if he needs to.
That's Chad.
And it's that wonderful balancing act.
That is true. And we have to, I say that all the time, when we don't end up with people like us typically, thank goodness, but you have to make sure you're doing the work to turn towards one another and not away, so that you are complementary and not bashing heads. I think it's one of my most quoted lines in my first book ever, Upward. A lot of people say, my favorite line is when you looked at Chad and was like, do you have an emotion about this? Because I have all of them. I still will say that. Do you have a feeling? Any? Pick one. I have all. I'll let you borrow them.
No, we're men.
I know. Yeah, you guys, it's just different. It is just different.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Well, I think that's probably all the comments that we've got.
Okay.
Nothing else has come up at all. So yeah, I mean, I'd just like to thank you for taking part, even though you said you weren't going to be doing very much for National Infertility Awareness Week. I'm so pleased that the summit was something that you decided that you did want to be a part of, and the fact that you've done 3 events for us. I think that's absolutely brilliant. So thank you so much for doing that.
Well, thank you for having me. It means a lot to be a part of this, and thank you to all the sponsors, and just the whole summit is just very, very grateful to be part of it, and that this is a resource for our community.
That's brilliant. And you and I are already talking about this time next year.
Okay.
So watch this space.